Welcome back to Kids Life. I'm here with best-selling parenting author Michael Grose, who's going to talk to us about sibling rivalry. This is something that's been around for a while, hasn't it? It's not going to go away.
No, it comes with the parenting territory, unfortunately, or fortunately. As families are shrinking too, I think rivalry is getting more and more fierce.
Yeah.
So it's always been there.
And what are the reasons for rivalry? I mean, it's so common, but...
Having more than one child.
Yeah.
What causes sibling rivalry? Kids are actually very competitive. It's a jungle in families, and kids are niche marketers. They're looking always for their differences. And so if the older child is quite good at sport or quite good at school, you've got a fairly good chance the second one will do okay at those areas but will shine in another area. So kids are naturally competitive. So as I say, families are hierarchical. They're often jungles, and I think in many ways the notion of sibling rivalry gives kids terrific coping skills. They develop skills to cope which help them in the schoolyard and beyond.
So it's not always bad, rivalry?
No, look, rivalry can be noisy. Rivalry can sometimes make family life really difficult for parents. So I always take it from a baseline that rivalry is part of family life. There are some things we as parents that we do which can actually increase it. One of the things is if we praise one and criticise another, or if we compare kids, they tend to actually increase rivalry. Also, it depends a little bit on children's temperaments. If you get kids who are a little bit more easygoing, they often aren't as competitive. And we also know boys tend to be more competitive than girls. So if you've got a couple of boys next to each other, they may be more competitive than, say, a girl and a boy. So a lot of different factors. But by and large, it is a part of family life. And I look at families not so much do kids fight, but do they get on? Will they stick together when the chips are down? Yeah. And by and large, 95% of the time, they will. But the fighting is, how do we deal with that as parents? And that's always an issue. Yeah,
well, how do parents deal with it? I mean, what's the best thing they can do to help out their kids?
Bear it, beat it, or boot them out is one approach. And what I might actually talk about, the wooden. No, look, look. For a reason, to some degree, there's always going to be arguments and conflict, and to some degree, I think we need to just bear with it to a degree. Secondly, we can actually move into another area, or third, boot them out. Fighting's out, fight outside. Now that's one approach. But I think actually we need to, as parents, look for ways which we can assist kids to resolve conflict all the way. So we're always teaching kids. Kids have L plates on. So we need to try and get kids to talk issues through. If you've got a child who comes and tells tales to you, don't have to listen to those, because what actually happens is kids play a sibling dance. One may thump one and the other one quickly runs to mum, and then all of a sudden mum or dad are involved in this dance which the kids play. Yeah. So in many ways it's a matter of extricating yourself from the dance. And if you're going to be involved, I think it's a really good idea to become involved and try and resolve the conflict or the problem. Yeah. So if they're having a fight or an argument over TV watching, don't get involved in who hit who or who started it. Try and get involved in the whole area of TV watching. Can we find a better way of watching TV? Yeah. And often kids don't want you to get involved at that level. They actually want you to solve the fight or blame one. It's fraught with danger to go down that track. So stick to that particular level stick to the problem. Yeah. The other thing which is useful for parents is actually to provide regular either family meetings or forums where you can actually sit down and talk this stuff through with kids. Only start that at the age of 5. And it's sort of like teaching kids how to fight fairly. Okay. So there are some things we can do as parents to not so much reduce rivalry, but to teach kids how to resolve conflict well. And that's a real life skill. What we want our kids to do is to resolve conflict, see the other side of the story, see their place in the story, and use verbal skills rather than physicality to solve their problems. Yeah. So
what they learn, they'll take from the house and into other life.
That's exactly right. It's a fantastic life skill. The other issue we've always got to be aware of is when kids are fighting, we've got to be aware of what we're doing as parents as well. We've got to make sure that we don't resolve conflict between each other or other adults using power or using shouting or using other means. because again, the kids will often cue in and copy us.
Of course.
So again, sibling fighting tends to be part of life, part of family life, as is rivalry. And it's not to be afraid of it, but more how do we use it constructively.
And control it.
Not sure if we ever control it, but actually make it try, and we've got to make it work in our favour.
Yeah. When should parents intervene? When's the right time?
Parents should intervene when they can be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Now, what I mean by that is sometimes we'll intervene and we'll be like the policeman or like the judge and try and find out who started it, and we may punish one. Not the right way to go. We need to become involved if we can actually help them solve the problem which they might be fighting over, or help them learn how to solve problems. So it might be sitting down and trying to, what I call, develop a sense of other. So I teach kids how to fight fairly, which is it's a bit like a sporting game. You don't play the man, you play the ball, not the man. So we don't call each other names. We stick to whatever the problem is, and if it's about TV watching or sharing the toys or whatever it is, that's what we talk about. And we try and see things from a different person's point of view, try and get some sort of solution, and then agree to it, and then move on. And so that's a little process which we can have.
Yeah, absolutely. Does the fighting tend to be physical or is it psychological? Does it change from boys to girls or age groups?
Boys are often far more physical because boys will convert their feelings to movement. So when they're unhappy with each other, often they can do it in physical ways, as most parents will know. They're often like puppy dogs. And girls will often be far more verbal, particularly as they move into adolescence, when they know the trigger points of their siblings, and they will actually they will really point out those weaknesses. So it can be quite verbal and quite nasty, actually, which I've experienced in my own family.
And what about age group? I mean, is there a certain age where kids will grow out of this, or where it's most prevalent?
Often it's very physical, and it's about territory when children are under 5, and parents will sort of notice that it's about, these are my toys, or it's about sharing. And parents need to be, a lot of teaching needs to happen in the early years. When they move into primary school, it can be quite noisy. It's quite noisy, and often it will shift around the house. And I think a great strategy which parents can have then is to have what I call bedroom etiquette, where kids can actually go into their bedroom and feel safe. And so it's about teaching kids then that you've got a choice to fight. You've got a choice then how you resolve your conflicts, and you don't have to stay here and argue with your brother or sister. You can beat it or go to your room or go to another part of the house and be safe. So it's about teaching kids about choices. And as we move into adolescence, fighting can be quite, particularly with girls. We know that the fighting changes in adolescence, and often boys are more easygoing as they move into adolescence, fighting-wise, except when girls are concerned. And often it becomes very, very verbal, very heated, and can become quite nasty. And what happens in adolescence is kids start to make choices about whether they're going to get on with their sibling or not. Before adolescence, we sort of got to do this because mum and dad say we do. As they move into adolescence and become more their own person, then they'll start to make choices. And for a while you might find that you've got 14, 15-year-olds who actually will not get on, and I choose not to get on with my sibling. It usually is when they become 18, 19, start to leave school and they move into adulthood, then they'll form relationships on their own terms.
All right, Michael, that was great advice. Thank you for your time.
That's a pleasure.